When thinking about world arts, one area in particular should come to mind: architecture. Architecture is a form of functional art, which can be experienced inside and out by people everywhere. I'm sure we can all name some famous buildings from around the world, such as the Colosseum, the Empire State Building, and even the pyramids. These are all examples of architecture from different time periods and areas of the world. These days, architecture is a sort of international art, represented by some well-known figures in the industry whose projects are sought after in towns and cities all over the world. Two of architecture's great masters have long since passed on: the American Mies van der Rohe and the European Le Corbusier. Both played major roles in establishing modern architecture, which would set the stage for designers for years to come. As a young man, Mies worked in his father's stone carving shop and at several local design firms before he moved to Berlin. He began his architectural career as an apprentice at the studio of Peter Behrens, and then with Walter Gropius at the Bauhaus. Despite his lack of a formal college education, his talents were quickly recognized, and he soon began getting work. Projects by Mies, such as the Barcelona Pavilion in Spain and the Farnsworth House in Illinois, still serve as inspiration for minimalist and functional architects everywhere. Le Corbusier studied at La Chaux du Fonds art school in Switzerland in his youth. He moved to Paris in the early 1900s and began working for the architect Auguste Perret, who was an early master of reinforced concrete. After that, Le Corbusier traveled to Germany and met Walter Gropius as well as Mies van der Rohe, who was around there at the same time. Buildings by Le Corbusier, such as his early project, the Villa Stein in France, and his design for the Parliament building in Chandigarh, India, were revolutionary in their use of modern design principles and, despite their age, still look relatively modern even today. These days, there are many well-known architects whose portfolios have garnered international acclaim. The contemporary American architect, Frank Gehry, is widely known for his whimsical forms and eye-catching designs. Born in 1929, Gehry moved to Southern California after World War II and attended architecture school at USC, only after working some odd jobs for several years. After dropping out of graduate school, he began his practice and has enjoyed continual success even to this day. As a sports fan, he even designed the 2004 Hockey World Cup trophy. A professor of mine once quipped that the only way to become a successful architect was to drop out of school and act like you didn't want to be one. From the looks of these previous designers' success, it looks like he might have been onto something. The relatively young European, Bjarke Ingels, who heads up the company BIG, has been making quite a stir in recent history as well. After studying at universities in Copenhagen and Barcelona, Ingels set up his first practice while still in school. After working for the Office of Metropolitan Architecture for several years, he began BIG, which has been quite busy with projects on several continents. Also breaking ground in the field of architecture is Zaha Hadid. Born in Baghdad on Halloween Day 1950, this Iraqi-born designer is arguably the most famous and awarded female architect to date. She is the first woman to win the Pritzker Prize, and her architecture has won many competitions, making her now one of the most sought-after architects in the world. She certainly has her place in architecture as well as product design, and was named among the 100 most powerful women in the world. Zaha Hadid graduated in mathematics at the American University of Beirut. After that, she moved to London and began her course of studies at the Architectural Association's School of Architecture. Zaha Hadid was taught by Rem Koolhaas and Elia Zenghelis, teachers and architects from the Office for Metropolitan Architecture, or OMA for short. After her graduation in 1977, she was invited to join the Office of her former teachers before beginning her own practice. And, coming out of Africa, is the relatively young firm of Stefan Antony Olmsdahl Truen Architects, better known as SEOTA, who has buildings from Africa to Russia and beyond. The original principal, Stefan Antony, received his bachelor's degree from the University of Cape Town in 1985 and began his practice, adding partners Philip Olmsdahl and Greg Truen in 1995 and 98 respectively. Since then, their firm has been expanding and their work is quite astounding. And there we have it, an American and a European architect of new and old, a successful firm in Africa, and the world's most famous woman architect. The field of architecture today is a vast expanse of ideas and design principles, and, as a form of art, is continually evolving into areas we have yet to imagine.